Change Anything, The New Science of Personal Success by Kerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, David Maxfield, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. Picture this, a 4-year-old boy named Kyler, sitting alone in a stark room. On the table in front of him sits his nemesis, one perfectly fluffy, impossibly white marshmallow on a plain plate. A researcher has just given him the ultimate preschooler's dilemma. You can gobble this up right now if you want. But here's the thing. If you can hold out for just 15 minutes, you'll score a second marshmallow. The door clicks shut, and Kyler's battle begins. He stares at that marshmallow like it's his mortal enemy. He leans in, takes a sniff. You can practically see the epic struggle playing out behind those little eyes. His forehead wrinkles with the weight of this momentous decision. Just when it looks like the marshmallow is about to win, something clicks. Kyler whips his entire body around, turning his back on temptation. He starts quietly whispering a bedtime story to himself, doing whatever it takes to forget about that sweet, sugary torture sitting just inches away. This legendary experiment, the marshmallow test, happened decades ago. The researchers tracked these kids for 20 years, and what they found was pretty mind-blowing. The children who resisted that marshmallow, they crushed it at life. Better test scores, stronger relationships, more happiness across the board. For years, we've looked at this story and reached a pretty depressing conclusion. Some people are just born with superhero-level willpower, and the rest of us got shortchanged in the self-control lottery. Tough luck for us, right? But here's where it gets interesting. What if we've been reading this story all wrong? What if willpower isn't some magical quality you either have or don't, like being able to wiggle your ears? What if it's actually a skill you can learn? And, even more exciting, what if willpower is just one tiny piece of a much bigger puzzle? Today, we're exploring a book that completely flips the script on how we think about change. It's called Change Anything, The New Science of Personal Success. The authors, a dream team of social scientists, spent years studying over 5,000 people wrestling with major life changes: losing weight, saving marriages, beating addictions, reviving dead-end careers, you name it. Here's what they discovered. When you fail to change, it's not because you're weak or broken. You've just been using the wrong strategy. By the time we're done today, you'll understand why all those past attempts at change crashed and burned. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with your character. You'll walk away with an actual blueprint, backed by real science, that makes you more than 10 times more likely to succeed. This isn't about summoning more willpower or trying harder. It's about seeing the game you're actually playing and learning the real rules. It's about discovering how to change anything. Let's get real for a second. Ever made a New Year's resolution with the fire of 1,000 suns, only to find yourself face down in a bag of chips by Valentine's Day? You swear you're going to hit the gym, eat better, stop doom scrolling, be more patient with your kids. You start like a warrior on a quest. But then the fire fizzles. Old habits slink back like unwanted houseguests. And suddenly, you're right back where you started, feeling like a failure and wondering what's wrong with you. I just don't have enough willpower, you tell yourself. This whole cycle, heroic promises, fading enthusiasm, inevitable collapse, is what the authors call the willpower trap. It's the belief that the only thing between you and your goals is sheer grit. And here's the thing. It's not just wrong, it's tragically wrong. It's incomplete, and it leaves you with nowhere to go. If you believe change is all about some inner quality you were either born with or not, eventually you just give up trying. You feel like a hamster on a wheel. Lots of sweating, zero progress. Remember little Kyler and his marshmallow standoff? The original researchers thought he won because he had some innate superpower. But a few years later, they teamed up with legendary psychologist Albert Bandura and asked a game-changing question. What if it's not about willpower at all, but about having the right tools? They ran the experiment again, but this time they taught one group of kids some simple tricks, the exact ones Kyler had figured out on his own. They showed them how to distract themselves, turn away, sing a song. Basically, how to hack their own behavior. The results? Mind-blowing. The kids who learned these tricks were 50% more successful at resisting that marshmallow. They weren't born stronger. They were taught to be smarter. Here's the first big truth of the book. When it comes to personal change, we're not just weak, we're blind. We're walking around with a dangerously incomplete map of how human behavior actually works. We think willpower is the only game in town, so we completely miss all the other powerful forces constantly pushing us around every single day. Think about walking into a casino. The entire place is designed with one goal: separate you from your money. The check-in desk is way in the back, forcing you through a maze of slot machines and poker tables. They make you use chips instead of cash, because research shows people spend chips way more freely. The constant symphony of bells and winning sounds makes you think your jackpot is just one more pull away. The music, the lighting, even that weirdly busy carpet, which is actually designed to make you look up at the machines instead of down at the floor. Everything is engineered to control your behavior. You can see these forces at work in a casino, but we're totally blind to them in our own lives. Here's the truth. Your whole world is basically one giant casino, and the game is your habits. Food companies pour billions into creating snacks that are scientifically engineered to be irresistible. Social media apps are designed by PhD-level psychologists to keep you scrolling. Your own home, with a television in every room and a fridge packed with convenient but junky food, is basically set up to make you as lazy as possible. So when you try to change a habit by just toughing it out, you're like one person trying to push a massive truck uphill. That's already brutal. But here's the kicker. What you don't realize is there are 6 other people pushing that truck back down the hill against you. This is why change feels impossible. Our problem isn't just that we're relying on one strategy, willpower. It's that we're also being shoved in the opposite direction by a bunch of forces we can't even see. When it comes to our bad habits, we're not just blind, we're outnumbered. So how do we fight back? How do we get these invisible forces working for us instead of against us? This brings us to the heart of the book, the 6 sources of influence. The authors discovered that every single thing we do is shaped by 6 distinct forces working together. Successful people who actually manage to change, the authors call them changers, don't just rely on willpower. Whether they realize it or not, they've learned to use all 6 of these forces to push themselves toward their goals. To prove this, the researchers at the Change Anything Labs ran a fascinating experiment with a bunch of 5th graders. They gave each kid a 10-minute job where they could earn up to $40 doing simple tasks. Along the way, they'd be tempted to blow their cash at the Change Anything store, a shop stocked with candy and toys at ridiculously jacked up prices. We're talking $8 for a bag of Skittles. Before starting, every single kid had big plans for their $40. They all wanted to save. The first group went in, and the researchers secretly aimed all 6 sources of influence at them to encourage spending. A planted kid would splurge on stuff and say things like, "You should totally get this, it's awesome." They used store credit instead of cash, so spending felt painless and abstract. They even had the kids taste their favorite candy right before hitting the store. The result? The first group left with an average of less than $13. One poor kid blew his entire $40 on cans of silly string and later told his mom, "I'm so stupid. All I have is this dumb silly string." When asked why they spent so much, every kid blamed themselves. "I guess I just really wanted it," one said, falling straight into the willpower trap. Then came the second group. For these kids, the researchers flipped those same 6 forces toward saving. Now the planted kid said, "I'm saving my money for something bigger." They paid in cold, hard cash, so the kids could feel the sting of every purchase. They had them write down their savings goals and track their money. The result? This group walked out averaging $34. Same kids, same room, same overpriced candy. The only difference was the direction of those invisible forces. And here's what's really fascinating. Just like the spenders, the savers thought it was all them. They believed they just had more discipline. Both groups were completely blind to what was actually controlling them. Except for one kid. His name was Isaac. Isaac was in the spending group, with all 6 forces pushing him to blow his cash. But he walked out with $30. How? The researchers watched the video footage. When the other kids swarmed the store, Isaac physically moved away. When the planted kid tried to tempt him, he looked the other way. Later, when asked how he did it, he said he kept thinking about the video game he wanted to buy with his $40. He was connecting his choices in the moment to what he really wanted long term. Isaac wasn't stronger than the other kids. He just wasn't blind. He could see what was happening, so as he put it, I had to be careful. The whole science of personal success is about learning to be like Isaac. It's about seeing these 6 sources of influence and deliberately designing them to support your goals. So what are they? The 6 sources break down into 2 dimensions, motivation and ability, and they exist across 3 different levels, personal, social, and structural. Let's break this down. Source 1, personal motivation. This is the one we all know. Willpower, desire, determination. But successful changers don't just try harder. They actively work on their own motivation. They learn to love what they hate. Instead of seeing exercise as torture, they connect it to their deepest values. They're not starving themselves on a diet. They're getting healthy so they can play with their grandkids someday. One powerful tactic is what the authors call visit your default future. If you don't change your spending habits, what does your life look like in 20 years? Don't just think about it abstractly. Make it real. Talk to someone living that future. Make it vivid and visceral. The pain of that future can become rocket fuel in the present. You need to tell yourself the whole story, not just the convenient parts you like. Source 2, personal ability. This is about skills. If change feels too hard, it's often not because you lack will, but because you lack skill. You're trying to do something you literally don't know how to do. Take Patricia, a woman from the book whose marriage was circling the drain. She was a fast-talking, high-energy nurse, and her husband Jonathan was slow and methodical. In arguments, she'd run verbal circles around him, leaving him in frustrated silence, which only made her angrier. Her goal was to be a better listener, but just trying harder to be patient didn't cut it. She had to actually learn the skill of listening. She and Jonathan used something called deliberate practice. She practiced at work first, breaking down listening into tiny pieces, like taking a full breath before responding, and getting immediate feedback. She learned that she had to do what she couldn't yet do. This is also where we learn the will skill, the skill of willpower itself. Remember Kyler? He used distraction. Willpower isn't just gritting your teeth and suffering. It's the skill of redirecting your attention. Source 3, social motivation. This is about the people around you. Are they cheering you on or sabotaging you? The book makes a brilliant distinction between 2 types of people, friends and accomplices. Friends help you succeed. Accomplices, even with the best intentions, encourage your bad habits. That coworker who says, "Oh, come on, one donut won't kill you," that's an accomplice. The authors found that bad habits are almost always a social disease. Their research showed that simply changing a few accomplices into friends makes you 2/3 more likely to succeed. This doesn't mean you need to ghost all your old buddies. It means you need to have what they call a transformation conversation. Sit them down, tell them what you're trying to achieve, and ask for their help. Say something like, "It would mean the world to me if you helped me stick to my goals instead of tempting me." You'll be amazed how many people are eager to become your biggest cheerleaders. Source 4, social ability. This is about getting concrete help from others. It's one thing for friends to cheer you on, it's another for them to actually help you. A friend who not only encourages you to hit the gym, but also shows you how to use the equipment? That's social ability. A coach is the ultimate form of this. Michael V, a man in the book who beat decades of alcoholism, couldn't have done it without his AA sponsor and group. They didn't just motivate him. They gave him information, support, and practical help when he was at his lowest. Changing deeply entrenched habits almost always requires coaching and support from others. Source 5. Structural motivation. This is about the things that motivate you, rewards and punishments. Our world is already set up with a twisted economy that rewards bad habits. Credit cards give you points for spending more. Fast food joints give you a free sandwich after you buy 10. You need to flip this script, what the authors call invert the economy. You can literally bribe yourself to change, but the key is rewarding small wins. Don't wait until you've lost 50 pounds to celebrate. Reward the action, not the result. Reward yourself for simply showing up at the gym 3 times this week. The rewards don't have to be huge. A new book, an hour to yourself, whatever matters to you. The book also introduces a powerful concept from behavioral economics: loss aversion. We're way more motivated to avoid losing something than to gain something of equal value. One changer who struggled with exercise made a bet with a friend. For every week he missed his goal, he had to send $10 to a political party he despised. That got him moving. Putting a little skin in the game can work wonders. Source 6. Structural ability. This is about changing your physical environment to make good habits easier and bad habits harder. This is maybe the most underrated, yet most powerful, source of influence. We are profoundly controlled by our surroundings. If you want to eat healthier, don't just rely on willpower to avoid those cookies in your pantry. Get the cookies out of the house. That's called building a fence. Another tactic is managing distance. Keep good things close and bad things far away. Move that dusty exercise bike from the basement into your living room in front of the TV. Make healthy snacks visible and convenient, and hide the junk food. Also, change your cues. Your environment is packed with triggers for your bad habits. That chair you always smoke in. The route home that takes you past your favorite bar. Change the cues. Put a photo of your kids where the ashtray used to be. Take a different route home. And finally, engage your autopilot. Make good choices the default. Set up an automatic transfer to your savings account the day you get paid. Buy smaller plates. Research shows people eat 92% of whatever's on their plate, regardless of size. And today's dinner plates are the size of our grandparents' serving platters. When you control your space, you enlist your environment as a tireless, round-the-clock ally in your change effort. Now you might be thinking, this is a lot. Where do I even start? This brings us to the final crucial idea from the book. You don't have to nail it perfectly on day one. In fact, you won't. The most successful changers aren't the ones who create a flawless plan. They're the ones who treat their change effort like a science experiment. You need to be both the scientist and the subject. Your job is to become the world's leading expert on one very specific subject, you. Your journey starts with identifying your crucial moments. These are the specific times, places, or circumstances when you're most at risk of failing. It's not about being on high alert 24/7. It's about being prepared for those few high-stakes moments. For AJ, a smoker in the book, her crucial moments were when she was on the phone or driving to work. Once you know your crucial moments, you create vital behaviors. These are simple rules you'll follow during those moments. Instead of deciding what to do when temptation strikes, you decide in advance. AJ's vital behavior was to avoid long phone calls and take a new, unfamiliar route to work to make her driving more mindful and less automatic. Then you build your six-source plan to support those vital behaviors. And you test it. You see what works and what doesn't. And when you have a bad day, when you slip up and fall back into an old habit, you don't beat yourself up. A scientist doesn't get depressed when an experiment fails. They get curious. They look at the data. You need to turn bad days into good data. A setback isn't a failure. It's feedback. It reveals a new crucial moment you hadn't planned for, or a source of influence you overlooked. You take that new information, adjust your plan, and try again. This is how real, lasting change happens, not through one heroic burst of willpower, but through a patient, curious, scientific process of stumbling forward. You identify your crucial moments. You define your vital behaviors. And you strategically, deliberately, use all 6 sources of influence, personal, social, and structural, to both motivate and enable those behaviors. You stop being blind and outnumbered. You start seeing the forces shaping you. And once you can see them, you can change them. You can change anything. As we wrap up our journey through Change Anything, I want to leave you with a thought. For so many of us, especially when we're young and ambitious, struggling to change can feel like a very personal, very lonely battle. We look at our failures, the diet that didn't stick, the project we kept putting off, the bad habit we just can't shake, and we take it personally. We think, I'm not disciplined enough, or I'm just lazy. The most profound gift of this book, in my view, is that it frees us from that burden of self-blame. It completely reframes the problem. It tells us that our failure isn't a character flaw, it's a strategy problem. You're not weak. You've just been playing a game where nobody told you the rules, and most of the other players were secretly working against you. The 6 sources of influence are the real rules of the game. Once you see them, you can never unsee them. You start noticing them everywhere. In how your kitchen is laid out, in conversations with friends, in the way you talk to yourself when facing a challenge. And that awareness is the beginning of real power. The power to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the architect of your life. If you're feeling overwhelmed by all these ideas, let me suggest a very simple, very small first step. Don't try to build a perfect 6-source plan tonight. Just do this. First, pick one single habit you'd like to change. Just one. Second, think about your crucial moments. When are you most likely to fail? Identify just one specific situation. Maybe it's late-night snacking while studying, or hitting snooze in the morning. Third, create one vital behavior. What's one simple, concrete action you could take in that moment? Instead of snacking, you'll drink a glass of water. Instead of snoozing, you'll put your phone across the room. And finally, add just one more source of influence to support that behavior. Just one. Tell a friend about your goal. That's social motivation. Put a reminder on your mirror. That's structural ability. Set aside $1 for every day you succeed. That's structural motivation. Start small. Act now. Because this book isn't just a collection of interesting ideas. It's a call to experimentation. It invites you to become a scientist in the laboratory of your own life, to approach your challenges not with frustration, but with curiosity. That was a summary of Change Anything by Kerry Patterson and his team. We've explored the core principles today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true power of this book lies in the stories and detailed tactics that can spark a personal revelation. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've discussed today has struck a chord, if you've felt that spark of recognition in the struggles we've described, I wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's an experience that can fundamentally change how you approach every goal you set for the rest of your life. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It lets me know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.